Stephen Karpman developed a model of social interaction and conflict between people. He called it a drama triangle. In a moment, you will see it on the screen. To have a triangle, you must have three roles: a victim, a persecutor, and a rescuer. Victim is a person who sees themselves powerless. Sometimes victims do have power and voice, but are afraid to use them. Persecutor, or in other words, the bad guy, the attacker, the one who bothers the victim. It could, for example, include allowing the victim to experience the natural consequences of their choices or behaviors. Rescuer, or in other words, the hero, comes in and takes care of the victim's problem. Sometimes by doing so, the rescuer ensures that the victim never finds their own voice or personal power. What gives the drama triangle much of its power and significance is the recognition that people will switch roles and will cycle through all three roles, never leaving the triangle. The solution to the conflict, according to Karpman, requires conscious awareness and willingness to take responsibility for our perceptions, the way how we see ourselves, our reactions and behaviors when we wake up and know that we are in the triangle. In other words, the way to solve conflict is to step away from the roles, from the role you take. This is the way of mindfulness, when we practice to notice, acknowledge patterns, when we step back to reflect on them and disidentify with them, not perpetuating the cycle, choosing wiser responses or behaviors. In this week's Torah portion, in the extract we've just read, the language of Cain and Able story becomes very similar to the language of Adam and Eve. It almost repeats itself in the way how it's written in the Torah. Vaikra Adonai, and God called to Adam. After Adam and Eve ate from the tree, Adonai called out to Adam and said to him, "Where are you?" Just one chapter before, just in chapter 3. What happened after Cain killed Abel? The eternal God said to Cain, "Where is your brother Abel?" There are more links between these stories, but this is the most striking one. In both stories, Torah scholars and commentators notice that God's questions are superfluous. Surely God knows where people are and what they did. In both cases, the scholars conclude that in both cases, people are given an opportunity to repent. But in both cases, people refuse to take the responsibility for their actions. In both cases, they accuse others of their sins. Adam accuses Eve. He says, "It is her who ate from the tree and said so that I eat it as well." Cain says that it is not his job to look after his brother. Am I my brother's keeper? Perhaps saying that it was his fault. Why did Cain do this? Was it jealousy? Was it insecurity? Perhaps. We don't know, as the Torah text has a gap in the narrative. Cain said to his brother Abel, and when they were in the field, Cain set upon his brother Abel and killed him. What did Cain say to his brother? the Torah text leaves this question unanswered. Some translations, however, from Hebrew, from the original Hebrew text, have this gap filled. For example, Greek Septuagint adds these words, and Cain said to his brother Abel, "Come, let us go out into the field," as if Cain was simply taking his brother to an isolated place. There are other insertions of the text which different traditions put or created. For example, the Midrash Rabbah suggests verbal exchange that might have led Cain to kill his brother. For example, one version suggests that they said the following: "Come, let us divide the world." Remember, there were very few people according to the narrative, so they could just divide the entire world between them. One took the lands and the other took all movable objects. So, of course, it led to a conflict. One said, "The land on which you are standing is mine." The other said, "Well, in this way, the clothes you're wearing are mine." One said, "Take them off." The other said, "Get off my land." And conflict started. This Midrash then offers an alternative explanation that they divided the land between them equally, but each claimed that the temple, the future center of Jewish life, would be built on their part. Nehama Leibovitz points out that these midrashic opinions are there not only to fill the gap in the narrative, but to explain the root causes of bloodshed and murder in human history in general, namely economic, territorial, and religious disputes. The story thus is not just about two brothers fighting, but about conflict throughout human history. Conflicts about who is better, who is right, who has more power and possessions have been a part of our lives from the very beginning. Being in conflict is rooted in human being, in human nature, and well recorded in the stories we tell. Violence is not a mystery, it is our nature. Peace in a mystery is a mystery. Anxiety is not a mystery. There are a million things that can go wrong with us. Calm is a mystery. When we say that we should act in an ethical and moral way to each other, this is when we demonstrate that we can go against our nature. Sin crouches at our doorsteps. Its desire is strong, and yet we can rule over it. Abraham Joshua Heschel developed a concept which he called radical amazement. He writes that awareness of the divine begins with wonder. To be a believer means to always be amazed and surprised, inspired, and don't take anything for granted. Not just what we see should be a wonder, but the fact of seeing should bring wonder alive. Human nature is human nature is strong, but our ability to overcome the bad inclinations is always stronger. Cain gives in to aggression against his brother, and then he fails to take any responsibility for his own actions, even when confronted by God and given a chance to repent. But the single act through which Cain takes everything from Abel changes Cain too. For Cain, forever uproots the comfortable, settled farmer who he was, and he becomes instead a rootless, unprotected wanderer. In essence, a walking replica of his brother. The persecutor becomes a victim. Once he deprives Abel of his safety, and once he denies his own responsibility, Cain is exposed to the depth of human cruelty in ways he never before imagined. And in doing so, Cain ironically deprives himself of his own ability to feel safe. There is always a danger to become the one who you are fighting against. We are more connected than most of us wish we were. The last 6 months has demonstrated it very well. When something happens to one of us, it happens to all of us. If one of us is not safe, none of us are safe. We are in the middle of a crisis which affects every single person. We are all in this together. The only way forward is through it. The only way forward is care, support, and help for one another. The desire to give in to aggression is natural for all of us. And this desire is very strong. But we have to remember that all of us are each other's keepers. For when the world is not safe for one, it is not safe for anyone.